So my colleague comes to me and says that she does not have time to teach social studies. This would, one, alarm me, because as a teacher, it is my job to make sure all of our students are getting all of the subjects. We are multiple subject teachers. Although it alarms me, I don't want to come across as hostile or judgy in any sort of way. I would say I understand there's a lot that we have to do, but I would lead into my idea of social studies, what it was and what it is now, that I too once saw as social studies as a separate subject, and not knowing there's so much potential for integrating it with other subjects, or knowing it's more than just memorizing facts. And maybe that's what her idea is as well. So wanting it to be a communication, or wanting there to be communication about what social studies is, and ways I can maybe support her and give her ideas of what she can do in the classroom. Me, because I love research and I feel like research often helps me buy what they're selling, I would say that there are educational researchers that say quality social studies is critical for the future success in the social, economic, and political systems, and that when teaching social studies, this also impacts the students' performance on the Common Core state standards. I feel like that would maybe be a good hook for her, and then to let her know that social studies, like I said, is not just remembering facts about history, and that social studies is based on understanding how people, places, and events come about, and how people can relate to or respond to each other's needs. We as teachers have the power to shape our future. Our students are our future, and what we teach them, what we decide to verbalize, is powerful, or is just as powerful as what we decide to not teach. So if she's not deciding to teach social studies, I would bring that concern of saying this sends a message to all of your students. Maybe I can touch base on the specific student she has in her class, and coming in from the student's perspective, keyword perspective, because that's what I think of when I think of social studies. But that if she's not teaching social studies, she is also having this unintentional harm being done to the students. And so I would want to tell her that social studies is about identity, focusing on counter narratives, which is really important. Racial justice, healing, liberation within the students, and having belonging. These are things that we want to teach within our students. And so I would tell her, yes, this seems like a lot. I spoke a lot already, but finding ways to integrate it within her existing schedule already, or within the curriculum. Sorry, I needed a quick breather. Let me go back to what I was saying. So I would want to give her specific examples depending on her grade level. I'm not sure my colleague's grade level, but knowing that there's so many options, if that's kindergarten and all the way through 6th grade, of course, there are more obvious topics for social studies for upper grades like middle school and high school. But for kindergarten, if we're reading a book focusing on something, and we can do a lesson for that. If it's leadership, if it's focusing on our community, students can draw a map which focuses on geography. We can read a story like how we did, or we thought of something. I know it's like I got a new puppy, or I'm looking for a new place to live, and how each thing ties into a social studies aspect, if it's geography, if it's economics. And this would honestly be really fun to do with the teacher herself, because we learn when we are doing something, and this could be a great learning experience for her to understand, wow, there's social studies within every single thing in our world. Also want to tie back into doing cross-curricular lessons. So if we're focusing on social studies and she already has her schedule and doesn't want to stray away from that, being like, okay, how can we integrate social studies into your writing time or into your math time? Writing time pops out to me because we can talk about counter narratives and see how we can fit this in for the specific writing that we're doing. If that's a narrative writing, they can put themselves in the shoes with caution, because it's not great for students to be put in positions where a lot of trauma happened, for the students who are a part of the trauma, or just having students relive something so terrible. But it is important for students to understand all the perspectives instead of just the dominant narrative. So this can be connected to ELA. And then for my plans to integrate social justice, instead of memorizing facts, I want to focus on the counter narratives rather than the dominant narratives, because that's what I grew up with, what most of us grew up with, and knowing how important it is to foster more empathy and critical thinking with our new generation. I want to ask probing questions to get students to think critically about how certain actions might affect those who were impacted in these situations. I want to ask more normative questions, like what should we do instead? I want students to dive deeper into our content. And this helps think about possible solutions for our real world. I want to also help students connect learning to their real life. This is a really nice thing to do with culturally relevant lessons and topics. And I want to include equity. So if we're talking about social justice, I want all of my students to not only feel seen, but valued and supported. And so, like I said earlier, if I'm not talking about something in social studies, that's also sending a very big message. And so I want to make sure all of my students know that they are welcome in the classroom and that I care. And so relaying this message onto my colleague, as well as things that I would want to do. Hopefully she would come to more of an understanding how impactful social studies is, and it's not just another topic that a teacher has to teach. It's a great opportunity